going to mention the Guardian and the TES, etc. I was really going for a much better newspaper. The News, Portsmouth. Catches the attention with a picture of a naked man, and then you realise it's the Sistine Chapel ceiling. And it's actually, it arose out of a reporter coming to the Genesis Expo and being shown around. And he's written down everything that I told him, actually. He was busy taking notes in shorthand, and everything that I've said pretty well is there. And he said, I haven't been able to find anybody to give an alternative point of view. And so I've got 2 pages. But, the features editor has added a small paragraph by Professor John Reed, who's the FRS spokesman, the Royal Society spokesman about creationism, and he is a professor of biological science. And he says that creationism is really ridiculous because there's overwhelming evidence in cosmology as well as in paleontology, fossils, for evolution. Now, to hear a biological scientist say that means that he hasn't got any evidence in his own field, but he knows it's in somebody else's field. Thanks very much. What Danny referred to, this week we've had, every day I suppose, the media have been phoning up the Expo asking, is there somebody who can talk about this and be interviewed. And we've been on BBC Radio London. They wanted us for the Heaven and Earth show, but then they decided to do gambling instead. We've been in the Guardian twice, the Times Educational Supplement, the Portsmouth News, and there's been others as well. I'm just not calling to mind, but oh yes, Hard Talk. So there we are. So while you're all having your postprandial somnolence, we'll just have a quick slideshow of the Genesis Expo, which I suppose I could preface by saying that we bought this site in, not the tower, but the site, for £130,000. It was an old bank on the Hard. The tower wasn't there at the time. This is 1995, February 1995, and it had 3 flats with it, and one of them we use for an office, one is let out domestically, and one is let out to another charity. And the whole lot for 130,000 is a real knockdown price, because nobody in the NatWest Bank who owned it was interested in collecting the rent from the flats, and they were thousands of pounds behind with all their rents on the 3 flats. So we got it for that knockdown price. People like Malcolm and Stuart from Bournemouth came over. An electrician, Jeff Tet, came over. Various other people. We had 37 volunteers working there, and within 5 years we'd opened and we'd paid off all our debts. £250,000 in donations have come in, and you know, we didn't do any fundraising. We simply said to the membership of the Creation Science Movement, we're going to build this, we feel this is the Lord's work. If you want to help, do. And the funds came in. Some were small amounts, and some were over 10,000. So the Lord was sending the money in. It's great. This is a picture of the tower, which has gone up since and is drawing people in. There's all sorts of tourist attractions around the Genesis Expo, and we're right in the middle of all of it. The Gun Wharf, the Isambard Brunel's the first ironclad ship, the Warrior. There's the dockyard with its ships and so on. We're right there in the middle of it. This picture was taken when the tower was still being built, and the Genesis Expo is there. We can see it a bit closer than that. There we are. Notice that next door to it is a car park for the hotel. That's where a bomb dropped. But even back in 1940, the Lord was looking after that building because he knew what was happening there. When you get inside, you'll see that it's an Aladdin's cave with loads and loads of fossils. People come in to see the fossils, and you just get people passing the door, non-Christians who come in, and then we point out to them that it's an exhibition and it's free and they can go round, and they do so, and for the most part they'll say, yes, I think I've always believed that. We're also selling lots of creationist books and videos, tapes, etc., etc. There's another view taken by the other front door, and over the till area there's a nice mural showing the 7 days of creation. You know, the Spirit of the Lord was brooding over the face of the deep and said, let there be light, and the light is in the form of a cross. And on either side you've got these giant hands, and in them nestling the man and the woman, Adam and Eve, and the hands are marked with the nails. So it's a nice gospel picture as well. And as you go in, you pass Boris, who used to roar, but he's developed a sore throat. And it's really an electrical problem that we've yet to sort out. But the kids love him, and there's his foot there. And he's laid some eggs as well. Those eggs he laid in the Gobi Desert. There's 6 of them, and I guess they might be something like 4,500 years old. And also as you go in, you pass a display of some rather nice fossils there. There's a crocodile, there's a big tabletop there which is made of polished limestone, and there's embedded fossils in it. There's even a set of dinner plates, there's a couple of them either side, and so on. On your way into a set of corridors. You can see, you can listen on earphones, which you can pick up and listen. There's also written material there, and of course you can look into the displays. So, the first one shows a large number of fossils. There's a rat, there's a bird, pterodactyl, frog, a fern, fish, human, and the notices all have quotations from experts in that particular type of fossil. And they're all saying things like, well, we don't know what the ancestors of these were. In other words, they're all missing links. And there's a quotation down on the bottom of there that you can read that where Colin Patterson of the British Museum has written a book called Evolution, and somebody's written to him from our movement and said, why haven't you got any photographs of missing links? And he's written back to say, if I knew of any, fossil or living, then I'd certainly have put them in. In other words, here's a man writing a book for the Natural History Museum, he's calling it Evolution, and he doesn't know of any intermediates. And then, continuing with the fossil theme, the second display, I'm not going to go into all the displays, but this has got a couple of screens. That is a living coelacanth, that is a fossil coelacanth, and for instance, dragonflies and fish, wood, a wasp, coral, and so on. The screens keep changing, and they're in pairs, the living thing and the fossil thing. What they're saying is that these things are in a stasis. They haven't changed over however many years you like to imagine. Things don't gradually evolve, they stay the same, recognizably the same. There's just variation. The third one, also sticking with the idea of sedimentation and fossils, talks about how rapidly the rocks get laid down. And there's a screen there which is showing some of the experiments that have been done in Marseille and also somewhere in America, can't remember. But showing that as you pass a slurry of suspension of sand and of different grades, in water, and they pass down a big flume, bigger than this room. They gradually settle out, and they settle out not as a mess, but as individual layers. In other words, these layers that you see in the rocks were laid down all at once. They weren't laid down 1 year at a time or whatever. And it shows, for instance, a crinoid, a sea lily, and when those creatures die, they fall apart. You finish up with a little pile of ossicles. And the fact that they're complete when you see them as a fossil means that when they were buried alive. Similarly, with a clam, a bivalve, it's always closed. The ones you see on the seashore are always open, 2 shells like a butterfly. It's because there's a muscle that holds them together. And when the creature dies, the muscle relaxes and it opens up. These creatures were buried alive. We've already talked about the upright trees in the fossil record. There's a photograph of one. There's a photograph of a fish eating another fish. And it says that in the middle of the fish course, both of them had their chips. What they're saying there is it happens very rapidly, and you don't need millions of years. And here's a big egg timer, and it's passing down a mixture of sand and earth, and as it goes through, it's a sort of amorphous mess at the top, but by the time it reaches the bottom, it's in distinct layers. Again, pointing out that the layers are laid down all at once. You don't need thousands of years or even millions of years. I'll miss out one or two. Here's the origin of life. And the idea is that out of a tin of primordial soup, life emerged. The ingredients being marsh gas, ammonia, water, salts. The recipe being that you leave it in sunlight and thunderstorms for about 1 billion years. The whole idea being ridiculous, because life is coded for by this molecule. This is a model of a little bit of DNA. And in this display, it points out that if you had all the information in all the world's libraries and put them onto mega chips, that's the sort of stuff that you've got in your computer, you'd need a pile of chips reaching to the moon. If you were to put it onto DNA, you would need something like 1% of the volume of a pinhead, showing that DNA is more efficient than the man-made megachip by a factor of 4.5 times 10 to the 13. That's a tremendous amount. The megachip didn't arrive by chance. The DNA didn't arrive by chance either. We've passed on from talking about fossils and information and origin of life to talking about men, and you've got there an African, an Oriental and a Westerner, and behind them you've got things like the pyramids, the Great Wall of China, Stonehenge, and in front you've got some Egyptian papyri, the Chinese warriors in model form, and of course a Roman ship in model form. And it's talking about the DNA, the mitochondrial DNA, the Y chromosomal DNA, and showing that if you only go back about 4,000 years, you'd meet the ancestor of us all, based on the rates of mutation which are published in the literature. That one has a lot of quotations with different experts talking about why they think that evolution is rubbish. There is this idea comes from a sacred Hindu book, and you have the Earth as a disc, flat disc, on the back of 4 giant elephants, on the back of a giant turtle swimming in the sea. They didn't get round to noting what the sea was contained in. But we also have a scroll above it, and you can just see the reference there, Job 26:7, which says that he hangs the world upon nothing. The scriptures say that the world's there hanging on nothing, and the ancients had to think of what it could have been supported by. In another civilization, it was Atlas, had it all on his back. That last one there shows the Earth as seen from the moon, and you'll recognize some of the star formations. And it talks about the anthropic principle, and I'll be talking a little bit about that later on when we see that the heavens declare the glory of God. You come out of the expo and realise that this new tower is actually built on a fish and chip shop. And if you look over the road, you've got the Brunel's Warrior, which was so advanced for its time that it gave us the Pax Britannicus for decades. And then again you look around and there's the historic dockyard, with the world's oldest dockyard, the world's oldest dry dock. Henry VIII's flagship Mary Rose, what's left of it. Nelson's flagship, the Victory, that we beat the French up with, and so on. It's an ideal place. It amazes me the way the Lord prepared this place in order to talk about His glory. Great, isn't it? Fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you, David.